often do you drink alcohol? Maybe once or twice a week, maybe most days, or maybe at this time of year you are finding there are plenty of drinks around on most days. On today's episode of the Nutrition Couch, we chat all things alcohol, which type is best, how much is too much, and the signs that you may be drinking way too much. Hi, I'm Susie Burrell.
And I'm Leanne Ward.
And together we bring you the Nutrition Couch, the weekly podcast that keeps you up to date with everything you need to know in the world of nutrition. As well as all things alcohol, we have a chat about party foods, the ones that we would suggest you avoid and the ones to focus on. I found a new chicken option that I think is pretty schmick. And this week our listener question is all about swimming. All right, Leanne, it's that time of year when a cheeky rosé is on the menu. And I think the issue is that it just seeps in on more days than not. It doesn't matter if you're at a work Christmas drinks or you're dropping the kids off and one of the other mums says, do you want to have a wine? And well, what can you say to that? Of course, I want to have a wine. Who doesn't? And before you know it, you're drinking on more days than not. And the thing with alcohol consumption that we have to say first and foremost as health professionals is there's no safe amount of alcohol that is okay to drink. It is a toxin to the body. It's linked to an increased risk of a number of diseases, including a number of types of cancer. The less you have of it, the better. So no one is saying that it's a safe amount. Really, the recommendation is the less the better. I preferred the old recommendations, which were for 2 alcohol-free days per week. I find the new recommendations are a lot more wishy-washy, so I'm not even going to go through them as a public health initiative. But what I say to my own clients all the time is I want you to have at least 3 alcohol-free days a week, ideally 4. I think it's better to not drink on more days than you don't. So if you've got a situation where someone's enjoying a small glass of red wine every day, and I mean small, I mean a proper, like not this, like that is a big pour, that is 2 serves. Like I'm talking the 100 ml. Once, most days I don't have a problem with it, but that's not how we drink, is it, Leanne? People binge drink, they drink large amounts. That is a standard pour. That is, what people are drinking as a glass and having 2 of those, which is actually 4 standard drinks. And I think the thing with alcohol consumption is before you know it, it becomes a habit. And then before you know it, you're polishing off a bottle, and it does impact things like our sleep. It's our calorie intake. It's our ability to focus and get things done. You wake up the next day hungover. You don't sort of do the things you want to do. You don't feel well enough to exercise. So it has a real roll-on effect to how you feel. And I know that you've got a Garmin, for example. I know that a lot of people now can track their actual physiological variables that are impacted with alcohol consumption. But I don't want to be boring Miss Nelly. I enjoy a glass of wine or 25 champagnes as I had with my friends at the races last week. But it's more, what are you doing in moderation? What does your moderation mean? And has it become a habit where you're having it on more nights than not? And I think at this time of year, the key message is you've got to have a plan before you go, because we've got 20 days or however many of party season. You'll probably find you're drinking 4, 5, 6 days a week versus saying, right, I am going to still have Monday to Wednesday without, or Wednesday's our Christmas party, so I am going to have a few drinks and it will be a bit debaucherous, but I am going to have an alcohol-free day on Thursday and being comfortable with that and mapping it out so that you give yourself, the rest that you need, and also not wasting calories on poor quality alcohol. Because one of my biggest things is that people will always just grab a free wine anywhere. And it's often not great. You might not even like Chardonnay or Sauv Blanc, and you just drink it. It's like chocolate or soul foods as you describe them. Have the alcohol that you enjoy. Don't just waste it because it's free or what's on offer. Have good quality and savor it. If you're someone who drinks anything, anytime, anywhere, you're probably doing it more out of habit than enjoying the alcohol. And that leads to sort of, low level addiction where people are actually having way too much too often and not even realizing it.
Yeah, 100%. I think with drinking and with food, I'd argue, you got to be a food snob. I'm a food snob and I'm proud about that, where if someone says, do you want a drink or do you want a rosé? Because that's one of my favorite things to drink. I'll say, is it French? And that's my first question, because if it's not French rosé, I'm not drinking it. And I'm a drink snob. I'm a food snob.
She's a racist drinker.
No.
Italian. What about Italian?
French rosé
Italian
is my
rosé is all
favorite.
right too. You can get
It's
some
my
okay
favorite.
rosés Italian.
I'm not talking about like the best quality in the world. I'm talking what is my personal preference. It's my concept of soul foods that I say to my clients. You have to be a food snob. If you're just eating and drinking every single thing that comes your way, you're never actually going to achieve your goals, and you're probably not going to be that healthy. Because like you said, the guidelines are there from actually a risk reduction perspective. They're not saying this is what's safe and what's not safe. There is zero amount of alcohol that is safe. We're not the food police. Do we both enjoy a drink or many on a special occasion? Absolutely. If there's French rosé at the bar, I will probably be first in line. I will admit that I love a couple of glasses of a good quality French rosé, but that is one of my favorite things to drink. If it's just the random standard house wine or that sort of thing, more times than not, majority of the time, I will probably just say no, because to me, it doesn't give me 100% joy and satisfaction. So I think it's okay to be really picky and choosy with what we want at this time of year, particularly if it's just the work drinks and it's a free bar tab and it's house wine and beer. Is that really what you're going to kind of spend that budget on for the week, knowing that you've got 2 or 3 other occasions social wise along this kind of busy Christmas season as well? We have to be a little bit snobbish with our food and drink choices at this time of year. If not, you'll be like most Australians who will probably put on that average of, what is it, about 2 kilos over that Christmas period. It's the average that most people tend to put on.
And they don't lose it. That's the problem.
Exactly.
People
so
gain 1 to 2, but they never lose it because they never then have that period of deficit that they need. So it's just, you're right, it's the mindless eating and drinking and not keeping your goals front of mind when someone does offer you a glass on a Monday. So I'll often give feedback to clients, Monday night, did you need 3 glasses of wine? Like, I feel like unless it's extenuating circumstances, like, you know, really, you probably need to have some clear days that are lighter. And that is tricky in party season, but I would really isolate out what are those special occasions versus not, and do you really need to have the full strength wine every night? Can you swap it for an alcohol-free variety? Which just makes me laugh because on our retreat, we had,
one of the ladies
we were
like,
sitting at dinner.
I've tried Susie's non-alcoholic wines and they're not okay, and I can't do it, and I'm not going there.
But why did she blame me? I'm not the non-alcoholic wine. You did the non-alcoholic wine. It wasn't even me. She tarnished me with a non-alcoholic. I think that really...
You were promoting them at one stage, so I think that's why.
Years ago, though. Years ago.
She remembered.
I'm just like, we'll just have a soda water. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So, but I was like, Leanne promoted the non-alcoholic wine, not I. I was falsely accused.
Think that they taste okay. She did not, though. But I think it's different strokes for different folks. You've got to drink the thing that really, that you like. And I think that the most important thing to remember is, what is the standard drink? Because like you said, most people will easily pour 250 mils of wine. That is not a standard drink. Like when we say a standard drink, try to stick to no more than, 2, 3 a day, and that's on a special drinking occasion. A standard drink is 100 mils of wine. It's about a full strength beer. It's a 30 mil shot. If you're getting a cocktail, you've probably got 1, 2, 3 shots even of standard drinks in there. So that cocktail itself is potentially 2 to 3 standard drinks. A big glass of wine, sometimes at like an RSL or a Surf Life Saving Club, they'll say, do you want the small one or the big one? The big one's like a bucket. Like that's easily, I reckon, 2, 3 standard drinks. Like it's a lot. I would not be driving home if I had that big one. So, we're not here to judge. We're not here to be the food police. We're not here to take all the fun out of party season. But it is really important that we have this discussion as health professionals, that there is no safe limit when it comes to alcohol. The guidelines in Australia are there to reduce the risk of harm from alcohol-related injury or alcohol-related diseases. Because the reality is that alcohol is actually linked to over 200 health conditions, including things like liver disease, different types of cancers like Susie mentioned, particularly breast, bowel, and mouth cancer, esophageal cancer, and then it also has impacts in terms of sleep disturbances, energy levels, cravings, hunger. It has this big flow-on effect through the rest of the week. So there is actually no completely safe level. So if you don't love alcohol, don't feel peer pressured at this time of year to drink just because everybody else is drinking. If you don't absolutely love it, go against the grain and actually say no, because it's actually not good for you. But if you truly do love it, you have to be a food snob. You have to be an alcohol snob at this time of year. If not, it is so easy to overdo the budget. And this is where Susie and I have clients coming to us saying, I put on 5, I put on 10 kilos over the last couple of years. I don't even know how it happened. And it happens over these big social seasons where you put on 1 or 2 and you never actually get it back off again. So 1 or 2 kilos, you probably won't notice it, but that builds up year after year after year. And suddenly you've gone from 60 to 70 or from 70 to 80 kilos. And now you're sitting around the mid 80s and you don't even know how it happened. It's generally because of these big party seasons. We're just accepting everything that comes our way and not being a bit snobbish about what we're actually going to drink, what we're actually going to eat and order. And I think that's one of the most important messages I say to my clients at this time of year is I want you to be a snob. Say no, pick the one you want and just have one. Don't have 3 glasses of the, mildly free, cheaper one, because it's more important that you have the best quality one that you're going to thoroughly enjoy, and that 1 or 2 of that be enough, not multiple glasses multiple times a week.
And I think that wine is tricky. It's a slippery slope with wine. One, because you never got control over the pour. Like if you're at a function, some glasses are small, some are big, they're topping you up. You don't actually know how much you've had. And often it's not great quality and it's just that auto cue, and often it's sweet. So you just keep drinking. So I think a few tricks, if you're in control of your alcohol intake at home, I think sometimes those portion controlled UDLs are really handy because some of them are very low calorie now and they are quite concentrated, but I actually think they're harder to over drink the way wine is. It's really easy to polish off a bottle before you even realize it. Whereas if you've had 1 or 2 of those, or you are having 1 or 2, to me, it's much easier to control the portion. I think the other thing is with women, and we all, we're women listening, women tend to peer pressure when it comes to drinking. If someone's not drinking, there's some real questions raised, why you're not drinking tonight, and it sort of draws attention. So in my experience, sometimes you're better to just accept it and sort of push it to the side and sit with a soda water. So have a sip or 2. If you don't like it, I'll just leave it there. I won't really drink much of it. And people then don't pay attention, but I think it often draws more attention if you are so proactive in saying no, and then people are funny about it. So I think that can work quite well as well. But yeah, at a minimum, I would want at this time of the year 3 alcohol-free days if you can, and just be mindful of, if you can avoid eating the fatty food with it, because that's where the weight issue comes, which we're about to talk about. Because people will often say, Leanne, that I've gained weight or I can't lose weight because of the alcohol consumption. And then what happens is they drop the alcohol and they don't lose weight and they're really frustrated. But the reason for that is that alcohol doesn't specifically cause weight gain. It doesn't work like that. Alcohol is a nutrient. A 4th nutrient is regarded as a toxin and processed very, very quickly out of the liver. But what happens, and that's also why alcoholics are often thin, because they often don't eat, they only drink.
Malnourished.
So they go sort of constantly and are not eating anything. They're processing all the alcohol and they get vitamin B deficient and need injections. Whereas what happens for the rest of us who love to eat and drink, when we're drinking, all the food calories that we're consuming, which is often, fried food, pub food, are stored. So you're just less likely to get to it. So if you've had a bender and you've had a bottle or 2 of wine and that's 2,000 calories, well, any food you ate that day won't be burnt off. So it's the combination of the food and the alcohol. Now, we're certainly not suggesting that if you're drinking, you just don't eat, because that's worse, in terms of hangover and metabolism and behavior. But we're saying that's the link. And so it's the combo. That's why I think going into this season or being in the middle of party season, you're better to have firm rules on how often you'll drink rather than trying to limit how much, because I find in general, once you start, very few people can stick to 1 small glass, especially in a social situation when it's, particularly if it's good alcohol, good food. You're better to go cold turkey and have some clear rules with it rather than expecting yourself to have 1 or 2. And actually learn, Leanne, that it's okay not to drink, because I think we're almost scared of it. It's like food restriction. Oh, I always have a glass of wine. If you sit out a day or 2 and don't have it, you might notice that you're actually having far more than you realize. And there's benefits to being a little bit stricter and to say, I'm a bit too reliant on it. If you can't go a day or 2 without a glass of wine, there's a problem. That is a sign for me you're having too much, and a period without it is probably needed just to reset your position, because basically, like all of those triggers in the brain, the more of it you have, the more you want. And if you're predisposed to being more dependent on it, you will feel that you literally can't have a night without it. And again, that's a problem.
Yeah, 100%. Because the guidelines really talk about 10 sort of standard drinks a week. And a typical bottle of wine, like I'm talking like a 750 ml, a proper bottle of wine, has about 7 to 8 standard drinks. So if you're going to polish off a bottle of wine on a Friday night, you're kind of done for the week. Like it doesn't really leave you any other wiggle room to have any other drinks on any other nights. We're certainly not saying drink a whole bottle of wine in a night, but that is a reality for a lot of Australians. And that is what they're drinking. It might not be, in one sitting. It might be, you start drinking at 3, 4 o'clock as, you're having a backyard barbecue and then you kind of drink into the night. It's very easy to have 6, 7 standard drinks. You don't think it is, but when you consider that a standard drink is only 100 mils of wine, it is very easy to get there over the course of like a long kind of afternoon in drinking into the night. So we're just saying, just be aware of it, measure out your drinks, like, hey, like actually measure out what 100 mils of liquid looks like so you're aware. So if you're at a pub and or you're at a wedding or something and they're free pouring your alcohol, you've got work drinks and it's, free bar tab and they're just topping you up constantly. That's, I think that one of the most dangerous things is like when you're at a wedding and they're just topping you up, because I will often be the designated driver at a wedding because I only like to have kind of 1 or 2 if it's not like a huge, celebration or something. And I always put my hand over the glass because I'm like, the most dangerous thing is when they just keep topping you up and you feel like you're sitting there and you've had 1 glass. But the reality is you're probably on like your 3rd or 4th drink because you're just constantly being topped up. So I think it's really important to be aware of how many drinks you do have. So if it is a big celebration where the alcohol's free, they're going around and they're topping everybody up, just put your hand over your glass. Make sure you finish your entire glass so you can mentally just keep a track of, all right, I've had 1 drink, I've had 2 drink, I'm safe to drive home, I'm not. I think it's a general safety guideline, particularly for women. Like we shouldn't have to say women shouldn't, walk home themselves at nighttime. But the reality is we have to be a little bit careful. And having 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 drinks at a pub and then walking home by ourselves probably isn't good because we don't really have enough wits about us. So I think it is really important to keep an eye on how many drinks you're having. And there's no way you can do that if you're at an event where you're constantly being topped up. So put your hand over a drink if they're coming round and only go and refill your glass or get another drink when you've completely finished the first glass, just so that you're aware of how many you've actually had.
And I think timing it is good because I've said before on the podcast that big drinkers are quick drinkers. And while it might take, a glass, for me, I'm quite a slow drinker and it will take a good hour, I'll find that they'll be finished in 10, 20 minutes. So having the rule of just 1 per hour goes a long way at slowing drinking, as does you might only do half and then put it down because it kind of goes warm and stuff anyway in Australia at this time of year. So if you're at a function where it's not great quality, have a little bit, put it down and then wait that period of time for another. And then you sort of have 1 glass in total, even though it looks like you've had 2, and drinking the soda water in between can really slow it down. But it's really interesting. I always say to clients that the first time you say no is the hardest. If you're with a feeder and the first time you say no, you'll and the next time it'll become a lot easier. So if you're prone to drinking too much and know you need to cut back, the first time you say no or put it down quickly will be more difficult and it will only get easier. So I just encourage you to be really clear about when you are going to drink this festive season and when you're not, and when it's not good quality alcohol, and have some strategies for keeping your volume controlled, and it will benefit your health, but also just your overall calorie intake at this time of year. Which leads me on to our next segment, Leanne, which is canapés, because canapés are very, very tricky. Finger food is the standard catering option. Whether you go to a 40th birthday, whether you're arranging food for a function, whether it's instead of having a sit-down meal, you're having what they call small meals. But the cost of food is high, which means that for people to do meat or chicken skewers, sashimi, oysters, prawns, fresh rice paper rolls, it's expensive to do that. A plate of catering sushi could cost you $100. So what do they do instead? We do the fried food because it's cheap. So we do spring rolls, we do arancini balls, we do curry puffs, we do mini quiches. Now, the issue is that these offer very little nutrient value overall. In some cases, if there's pastry, they're probably a source of trans fats. They are high in calories. They're incredibly easy to overeat. Like 3, maybe 5 canapés is literally the same number of calories as a meal. And yet it barely touches the side. It is so easy to overeat. So again, not wanting to be the Christmas Grinch and say, don't eat anything at the party, I would say don't waste your calories at the party on poor quality food. And if you're going to the standard work Christmas party where budgets are tight and they're offering that kind of food, or it's at an RSL, I shouldn't say RSL because you love an RSL, but you're at a club and it's sort of that standard catering option before an event and it's really not, great quality, I would kind of eat before you go and not waste it. Now, if you get there and there's amazing skewers and sort of, little stir fry pots and really great food, enjoy it, go for it. But I think just really try not to waste calories on that stuff, because even if we like it, we all know it makes us feel terrible the next day. You haven't had any nutrition. And really, as I said, you're just getting this massive calorie meal, often with poor quality wine. And no wonder we feel gluggy and bloated and gain weight over the Christmas period if that's happening multiple times a week.
Yeah, 100%. And the more wine you tend to drink, the more canapés you tend to eat. So it's sort of this difficult cycle to get out of. But it brings me back to my initial point. Be a food snob. Like, you have to be a food snob. Like, if you love spring rolls, like, I would argue that the spring rolls offered at like the work function are not going to be great quality, right? But if you go to your favorite Thai shop and the prawn spring rolls are the favorite thing that you love and you look forward to it for weeks on end, like, go and enjoy that. We're really trying to teach you to be a food snob and only really eat great quality food. And if you don't know what's on offer, you should be eating before you go. Like, there's really no excuses. Like, I'm busy, yada, yada. Like, go to the party 30 minutes late. It's really not a big deal. You have to eat before you go. If not, you will overeat. Just that stuff that's just fried and, that terrible type oil. Like, it's just no good. There's often like a big platter of wedges, and the more you drink, the more you eat. And often these things go quite late as well. So I think having the mindset where, I'll eat when I get home. Like, so many clients of mine, they're try to do the right thing. They're like, I'll eat when I get home. I'm like, no, you won't. You'll eat before you go. Because I know what the reality is. We think we'll stay an hour, but then, as women, we feel guilty. We don't want to leave, or we're actually having a good time. So we stick around. And before we know it, we plan to leave at 7:30. It's now 9:00 and we're like starving. We're going to have to eat something. So I always think that don't ever plan to eat when you get home. Just eat before you go. And sometimes clients say to me, but it starts at 5:30. I'm like, cool, eat at 4:30. I don't have a problem with people eating early. 99% of the time, if I know it's canapés on offer, I want my clients to eat before they go. And it's not like oh my gosh, you can't ever eat a spring roll. Like, I don't care if they eat a spring roll there, but I don't want them to eat 5 spring rolls and 3 sausage rolls and 2 handfuls of the wedges because they're starving, because they didn't eat any kind of protein or fiber before they actually went. And sometimes it's as easy as like a tub of protein yogurt and an apple, or it's a little mini turkey and salad wrap, and that's just enough that you're not walking into that event absolutely starving and hunting down the poor guy with the canapé platter because, you're about to eat your arm off because you're so hungry. So 90% of people should be eating before they go, unless they know they're just, dipping in, popping in, saying hello, and they're straight back out of there again. And you know that you can actually make it home for dinner, or you know that you're that personality type that is strong enough to just be like, no, okay, goodbye. And, actually leave at the time you'll say you will. But most of us, myself included, feel bad and feel guilty and don't want to leave once we're there. So I think the reality is that most of us should be eating a proper balanced meal, even if it's a late lunch, even if it's a decent sized snack before we go, something with a bit of protein, a bit of fresh food, some veggie or some fiber bulk in there, even just to fill our tummies up that 20, 30, 40%, so we're not walking in starving. Because the reality is you're not going to get beautiful prawn cocktails, you're not going to get, the chicken skewers, you're not going to get the beautiful rice paper rolls. You're just not. That's not the budgets that people have these days, unless you do know it's a very fancy friend or a very, very fancy party. As Susie said, most of it will just be fried food, basically.
And if you're catering, I think a really good option is people love finger sandwiches. They love a finger sandwich, and that can be really quite healthy. And I think we've spoken about how to make platters up, which are really quite healthy as well. So you can easily do the veggie dips, lots of veggie sticks, some thin type cheeses. You can do the prawns wrapped in things, the smoked seafood. So there's certainly options if you've got time and energy. You could make your own healthy rice paper rolls with lean chicken breast and carrot and cucumber sticks. So there are lots of healthy canapes online. I've got a lot of smoked salmon ones on my Instagram. So there are options, but I think it's more, Leanne, when you're not in control of it, and generally the catering is cheaper, nasty options. And yeah, unless it's sort of, and even then it's not a special occasion. If it's just run of the mill catering, the key is absolutely to eat beforehand. But I'm in love, Leanne. I'm in love for the first time, maybe second or third in my life. I have found some amazing chicken breasts at Woolworths. Have you seen this product?
I have not. They're on sale though.
There's a new range. Yes, they are on sale for $8.50 at time of recording. They're saving how much? $2. So they're usually $10.50. So there's this new range of barbecue chicken packs. They're all different flavors. They're in the fresh section, the chicken section of Woolies. In that new section, they've got where there's kind of a lot of ready to go options. There's like sausages, and then there's like the pulled meats with marinade or the chicken skewers. And then this is sort of at the top and in the chicken. And they've got 3 or 4 different flavors of these marinated chicken breasts. So the one I've chosen today is the barbecue chicken breast Greek style. It's 500 grams. So you get 4 decent serves. And it is such a good product. So the ingredients are 95% RSPCA approved chicken breast with a 5% marinade. And one of the feedback points we sometimes get is that if we've recommended products that do have added flavors, people are like, make your own. But this is healthier, I reckon, than what you could even make at home and probably taste better. So it's just got for 5% only. So a light marinade, sugar, salt, maltodextrin, maize flour, vegetable powders, some garlic, food acid, spices, natural color, flavor, powder. Like, even though there's a lot of ingredients, it's very clean for 5% of ingredients. Per serving size, 125 grams. And I like them, Leanne, because they've bashed the chicken breast down so it's really thin. So it looks massive, but it's not. It's just like really well done. So it looks like a big portion. It's only got 150 calories per serve, a massive 27 grams of protein. It's extremely lean, low fat, low saturated fat, as you'd expect chicken breast to be. Tiny bit of sugar, 1.5 grams, insignificant. 448 milligrams sodium, again, fairly low for a sort of marinade on anything. And I just think what a fantastic product, because sometimes if people are trying to keep their dinners light, you know, you whinge and think, oh, that's boring, chicken breast and vegetables. And here you've got this delicious lean chicken breast with a light marinade. So it's got beautiful flavor that you can serve with salad or roast veggies, and you don't feel like it's boring or diet food at a really good price point. Like, that's like $2.50 per serve, Leanne, of 27 grams of protein. I can't fault it. So I think the more of these products at supermarket, the better, specifically designed for barbecue. Now, we recently covered barbecues because everyone eats these fatty sausages. Well, just take a packet of these if you go to a family barbie and you're set. You've got beautiful chicken. You can do it for the week. If you cooked it on the barbie, you could have it for your sandwiches, for the kids' lunches. I think there's a honey mustard one. There's a few different mango maybe flavor. But yeah, big thumbs up from me. I think well done, Woolies. The more of these convenient, tasty meal options that we have, the better for busy people.
Yeah, great. I like it. The other flavour is sweet and tangy mustard. I will note for our celiacs, it does contain gluten. Within the flavouring is a bit of barley. But yeah, I think that they're a great find. They're pounded out, so they call them chicken breast steaks. So they're nice and flat, which is good. So they'd be really good for, like, you know, wraps even, or even just leftovers. Like, I think it's a really affordable price point too. On sale, $8.50. Like, I pay more than that for standard like chicken tenderloins, I'm pretty sure. So I actually think that's a really, really good price point. And yeah, you can make your own marinade at home, but when you're, you know, sometimes when I get the kids till 5:30 after daycare run, like sometimes, you know, dinner, you just need something like to literally whack on the stove. You don't even have 5 or 10 minutes to make up a marinade because kids are screaming at you and people need to eat, and it's all of the things. So where we can find quick and easy products, we are all for it on the Nutrition Couch. If you want to make your own marinade, you go ahead and be my guest. But I think that this is a great product. And yeah, I think we are going to be seeing more and more great products available because we're demanding them as consumers. We're even more and more time poor. We're wanting more healthy options, and where we can, it's also 95% Australian ingredients as well, which is excellent too. So it's all Australian chicken, which we like.
Yep. So check it out and let us know how you find it. All right, Leanne, for our final segment of the day, a question or about swimming, because a few of our listeners have decided that the water is warm enough now to have a dip. And, you know, is swimming a good form of exercise? What do you, Leanne Ward, say?
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. Swimming's a great form of exercise. It's like, it's full body, it's low impact. So it's really good for anyone who has like injuries. They're going through a bit of a rehab program. You've got chronic pain, back pain, knee pain, arthritis. I think it's a great option. I've got a lot of clients who enjoy swimming. Maybe not so much in winter, definitely in the warmer month. But I think from like a general health perspective, it absolutely counts as exercise. It's really good from a cardiovascular and a metabolic health perspective. It's great for your heart and your lung capacity. But like everything that, you know, the intensity matters. So are you just doing, the slowest laps possible, which would be me because I'm not a strong swimmer? Or are you going in there and you're doing like really like moderate freestyle, or you're doing pretty like moderate like butterfly up and down the pool? And how long? Of course, you're jumping in for 10 minutes and you're doing 2-3 laps and jumping out, or are you swimming, consistently the entire time for the full hour? So I think that intensity matters. And I think often how often you do it as well. But I think it's wonderful. Any form of exercise is great for your mental health. It's great for your stress. It's probably it's not the same as resistance-based training. So we know that women, particularly once you're past the age of 40, need to do something from like a bone and a muscle perspective. So it's not going to give you that benefit. So I would say swimming alongside 2 days of resistance training is great. But swimming overall, like I don't have a problem with it at all. I think it's a wonderful form of exercise. And I think if you enjoy it, go for it. But I wouldn't say if somebody didn't enjoy swimming, it's not something I'd push them into. I think that there are other great forms of exercise as well. But I do think the most important thing is to find something that you love, because you can actually do it regularly and you can do it consistently long term. So if you're a swimmer and you love it, absolutely, it's a great form of exercise. But don't forget, you still need to do some of that resistance or weight-based training as well.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with you. I think it's movement. I would liken swimming to walking. So it's great
for
flexibility.
The intensity though.
It is, but most people can't swim at the intensity you'd require to burn the calories unless you're Ian Thorpe, because they do a lap, stop, do a lap, stop. Now, I'm a good swimmer, like I can swim and do easy K, but it's not, the heart rate is not like 150, 160. Like it's at that lower kind of level. So what I often see is people who love to swim and they'll say, oh, well, I'm going to the pool 3 times a week. And I'll be like, yeah, but it's not translating on the scales because it's not, the heart rate's not elevated for as long because you stop all the time. Because to be that fit to keep going, you have to be super fit like an athlete. So, unless Susie O'Neill, who goes and churns out 2K for a quick workout in the morning, or Hayley Lewis, probably it's great for all the things you described, for people who can't move very much, for joints, for flexibility. It really stretches you out, for strength through the shoulder and upper body. It's great for breathing, but it's not going to give you the fat loss that higher intensity cardio like running, fast walking, exercise classes, CrossFit, the bike, it's not the same. So I sort of say to my clients, look, if you want to do it once, maybe twice a week, 30 minutes, great. But you still have to do the other stuff. You can't sub it in. It's not the same level. So it's a really interesting one because it takes a lot out of people, so they feel like it's a bit like Pilates. Like it really takes it out of you, so you're feeling like you've had a great workout, but it's just not hitting that elevated heart rate for long enough, because people can't generally swim nonstop for 20 minutes without stopping. Most of us will do a couple of laps and stop and then come back, So it's an interesting one. So I think great, huge benefits, but you will have to do some other exercise with heart rate training and resistance to get your complete balance. And specifically, if the goal is fat loss, you probably will need to do more whole body movement stuff that gets that heart rate elevated consistently for a good 20, 30 minutes a few times a week.
Yeah, agree.
Okay. All right. Thanks for listening to the Nutrition Couch. We hope that your party season's going well and that the information has given you some tricks and tips today. If you haven't seen already, please check out our Designed by Dietitians range of evidence-based supplements, including our brand new Hydrate, which is specifically formulated to aid the fluid requirements of busy women. And we look forward to seeing you next time for our regular weekly episode. Have a great week.
Catch you guys next week.